Welcome to Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Nick Geber. Find me on Twitter, at Nick Geber. This beautiful January the 7th, 2020. It's not just the 7th day of the new year. It's also Liberian Pioneers Day, a day we all celebrate with a lot of alcohol around here at the Picks and Parlays studios. Great to be with you. We have a lot of sports to get to today, and we are joined by some of our absolute best handicappers that we could find, at least the ones that were sober. So stay tuned. We're going to cover a little bit of everything. AFC Playoffs with Joe Duffy. Unfortunately, Sean Duffy was not available today, so we've got the understudy. Joe will be joining us, but the Duff man, whether it's Joe or Sean, he's here with us to talk Titans-Ravens, Texans-Chiefs. Then some NBA with the Triple B himself, Bookie Blaster Brown, Tony Brown. We're going to talk NBA basketball, Timberwolves, Grizzlies, Blazers, Raptors, Knicks, Lakers, and the Pistons, Cavs. And finally, if we're talking basketball, let's do some college basketball as well. Who better than Tony Comandante El Tigre Tellez joins us to talk college basketball, Kentucky, Georgia, Villanova, Creighton, Ohio State, Maryland, and Baylor, Texas Tech. We've got three of the big things, Big East, Big 12, Big this, Big that, and of course, an SEC thrown in as well. That's what we're going to cover today. Of course, you can find us live on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. And we do stream live throughout the day on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We hope you will join us on a regular basis. It's good news for your wallet. I promise you that. Look, if you want to participate in the show, we'd love to hear from you as well. And you can do that. Just fill in the comments section on any one of those social media platforms, and we'll see it here in the studio, and we will put it up on the screen, and I will do my best to incorporate your pithy and clever comment into the show. All right, that's what we got on the table today. Once again, picksandparlays.net. We got a ton of free picks up there for you, and our expert picks are aplenty. We do have a special offer through Friday. It's our yearly pass. Any capper, all their picks throughout the year, $9.99. And if you want to throw in another capper there, you can get two cappers for $14.99. This special only good until Friday. So do yourself a favor and move right along and take full advantage of it. All right, I'm going to step aside, take a break, gather my thoughts. Be right back with Joe Duffy. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Nick Geber. Twitter me, at Nick Geber. Nickgeber. I promise you today, I'm not going to talk FA Cup soccer with you, so don't worry. Let's talk AFC Playoffs. Let's bring in our special guest, star handicapper. Well, the star handicapper couldn't make it today. Oh, Joe Duffy. Ha! Welcome to the show, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not as nice of a bloke as my brother Sean Duffy, but, you know, what the heck? My picks are certainly not rubbish. Sean likes to bet them, so we're going to have some winners for you.
All right, well, we certainly are. Let's start. We're talking about the AFC playoffs. Let's go with the Saturday game, shall we? Joe, a.k.a. Sean, a.k.a. Joe. The identical twins. Hard to tell you apart, that's for sure. Titans, Ravens. The Titans, 10-7, 10-7 against the spread. This is the big, after that big wild card win over the Patriots. And we can talk about that briefly, too. Three wide receivers, though, out for the Titans. Adam Humphries, Khalif Raymond, and Cody Hollister, plus Jaden Brown is out. I don't know what effect that's going to have, but you're the expert. You'll tell me. And the Ravens, 14-2, 10-5-1 against the spread. Class of the league, obviously. Had a nice week's rest. They had a nice drink, spent some time with the family, went to the movies. Earl Thomas and Mark Ingram, they spent nice time with the families. They're recovered. They're going to be probable for this game. First in scoring, first in rushing, most time on the field, 9-point favorites, 47 points. Joe, Sean, whatever your name. Duffy, take it away.
Yeah, not only am I often confused with Sean, but Brad Pitt and I have that same problem. We're confused with each other all the time. Anytime you have a big underdog in the playoffs that has at least two more losses as a favorite on the year, which again fits into that term that we like to use, regression to the mean, where, the Titans probably should have had a couple more wins, but teams like that do pretty well in the playoffs at a 58-23-2 rate. And again, that would benefit the Titans. Also, going against teams that have a margin of plus 11.5 or better, a scoring margin or better, 24-9 in the postseason. So in other words, these teams that had dominant seasons, and it would of course include, if this were the next round of the playoffs, it would include their season today, would include whatever playoff games they played. In this case, of course, not the Ravens haven't played any, but essentially dominant teams are a pretty good go against in the postseason. You're almost always going to be laying a big number, and of course you're going to be an underdog with a pretty quality team. I'm still, again, Ryan Tannehill, I'm just not totally sold on him. Look, his numbers have been phenomenal, completed more than 70% of his passes for over 2,700 yards in 11 regular season games, 22 touchdown passes, 4 rushing touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. I mean, yeah, maybe shades of Trent Dilfer, where an underachieving quarterback had a career year and led his team to the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but still, all in all, Tannehill's not a guy I want to die on the hill with. But what I always say, again, handicapping total is much more about pace. With Jackson having the 2 weeks off, of course, he was rested last week in the regular season. They didn't play in the wild card round. He is going to be off and running, literally. I also think it makes sense. Yeah, I know I'm a little bit worried about Travis Henry carrying the ball. I think it was 34 times, maybe 37 times. He carried the ball a ton of times. I think it was 34 times. Will he be beat up a little bit still? I can see both of these teams running the ball. Obviously, the Ravens in no small part with their quarterback. So I do think with a fairly high total, I like this game to go under the total.
Under 47 it is. And, of course, the Titans going to be on a bit of a roll, shall we say. Emotional high, no doubt.
Yeah.
Very quick, though. Talk about the Patriots for a second. Of course, the big discussion, is Tom Brady going to stay or go? Is he going to retire? Seems like he's going to go somewhere else, and he's not going to retire. But we'll wait and see. But, I ask you this question, because I'm a firm believer that, one player doesn't make a team, at least in this sport. Gronkowski plays, different result, question mark?
Yeah, no question. Gronkowski is an enormously important player. When that one player, though, is Tom Brady, I take on Brady is every bit as great as that everyone says he is. Remember, 3 weeks ago, everyone's talking about this was the greatest defense that New England ever had. And I kept saying, look, I'm not counting Tom Brady out. I think the Tom Brady could return for the playoffs. But if he doesn't, I don't care how good their defense is, they're not going to go deep into the playoffs without the old Tom Brady coming back. Of course, yeah, Gronkowski be the second most valuable player. To say he wouldn't have made any difference would be idiotic. Of course he does, but I still think the number one reason that New England lost was because Tom Brady may finally age might finally be coming catching up to him. Not to say I would bet against him having a bounce back year next year, but I'm now starting to think that Brady's best years are totally behind him.
As we say, past his sell-by date. I've been saying that all along. All right, Houston, Texas, Kansas City Chiefs. This is the Sunday game. The Texans 11-6, 8-1 against the spread. They held off the Bills to win the wild card game. By the way, I'm not sure they won that game or the Bills lost it. I mean, that was some of the worst play calling I've ever seen in my life. Jonathan Joseph, Will Fuller, Jordan Akins, all doubtful. They're 7-3 in the last 10. The Chiefs, this is a tough ask for the Texans. The Chiefs 12-4, 11-5 against the spread. They're 8-2 in the last 10. The last one was beating the Chargers, but I think everyone was taking a knee for that game, at least the important players. 5-3 straight up against the spread at home. Second in yardage per play, fourth in scoring. 9.5-point favorites. Bigger spread here for the Chiefs than there is for the Ravens. Total of 50.
Yeah, there was some terrible play calling. I had even said on Twitter, I was shocked that I didn't hear the announcers even address it. I was surprised not that many people on Twitter were talking. Buffalo, I thought, should have punted the ball on 4th down and 23, and they would have had better field position when they got the ball back. They maybe could have gotten a touchdown. That I couldn't believe. Not that many people were questioning, and they seem to have been playing for the win at the end when I thought they could have gotten better field goal position, but they sent it into overtime anyway. But let's get to this game. Playoff home teams off of a bye and a win under specific circumstances. A little bit of a surprise. I know way back when I got started in this business, it was good to bet on teams off of a bye. No more. Teams off a bye and off of a win are actually a pretty good go against at 14-1 to go against. That would apply to the Texans. However, big home favorites, despite splits saying they're better on the road. Now, this is regular season and postseason combined. The Chiefs are good. The Chiefs have actually been slightly better on the road, but it says to go with them at home because those splits rarely hold up. So that would favor Kansas City.
They're only 5-3 at home, both straight up and against the spread. So your point's well taken.
Yes, correct. But don't outthink yourself, is what my computer says. Teams, here's a big one though. Teams in playoff same season revenge in the playoffs are 67-48, including 6-0 when laying 9 or more and winning by an average of 32.5 to 16 points. However, I got to say that overall, that original, the master angle, that's 67-48, slowed down a little bit since 2014, just 14, 16, and 2. Teams that are off a playoff comeback after trailing by 14 or more are actually a pretty good fade of 56-47. So will there be a letdown? The computer says there has been 57-46. Again, fade that team. So that would say to go with Kansas City. But all in all, Andy Reid, what's the criticism against him? He gets the lead. He's aggressive early. If he gets the lead, he gets very conservative late in the playoffs. That's why I think Kansas City is going to be very aggressive early. And I do like the over 9.5 in the first quarter.
Wow. Okay. This is a very tough ask, I think, for the Texans. I mean, I've been saying this for the last few weeks. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're kind of gone under the radar a little bit as everyone looks at the Ravens and swoons about them. But this Chiefs team's a good team.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mahomes, since the injury, wasn't quite as dominant as he was before the injury, and I think that's one of the reasons. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks, coming back from an injury, haven't been as good before. It comes down, it does. It really comes down to Pat Mahomes. If, the Mahomes is back pre-injury, then Kansas City, I think, would actually be the favorites. But we'll probably get a big answer to that question this weekend. Yeah, if Mahomes has a spectacular weekend, I would say that I would actually make Kansas City the favorite to win it, although they would have to go on the road, assuming Baltimore wins. But Kansas City is loaded. It all comes down to, is Mahomes fully back?
All right. Joe Duffy, you've done well standing in for your brother, Sean. Identical twins. Joe, we'll see you at picksandparlays.net. And right now you can get Joe's picks for the entire year for $9.99, picksandparlays.net. And if you want to add Joe and say it's Tony T or anyone else, it's only $14.99 for 2 cappers for the whole year. All right, I'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays, here on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Nick Geber. Find me on Twitter. Twitter me, twatter me, send me a note. Nick Geber, Nickgeber. Great to be with you. Well, that was an interesting discussion we had in the last segment with Joe Duffy about the AFC playoff coming up this weekend. But now let's turn our attention to some NBA basketball. And let's bring on in our very own NBA handicapper, the expert man himself, Triple B, Bookie, Blaster Brown, Tony Brown. Welcome to the show. How was your New Year, my friend? How are you celebrating this Liberian Pioneers Day?
I'm a little disappointed, man. I thought Sean Duffy would be here.
I don't know where he went. I think he's still hungover from the holidays, to be fair.
No worries.
You're having a good Liberian Pioneers Day today?
Almost. I'm just waiting to finish this segment, and I'm going to get stone drunk and celebrate the Liberian Pioneers Day.
Well, good, because I'm already stone drunk, so let's get on with it, shall we? NBA basketball, the topic today, Tony. We've got 4 games we've curated for our listeners and viewers. Why don't we start with the Detroit Pistons? Almost had the Lakers, almost, then they didn't. 13-24, 14, 21, and 12 against the spread. They're 2-8 in the last 10. Just mentioned it. They lost the last outing to the Lakers, 99-106. 5-14 straight up, 6-11-2 against the spread away from home. Markieff Morris is doubtful with a foot injury. That means he's got athlete's foot. They've gone over in 6 of the last 8. And the Cavs, 10-26, 14-20-2 against the spread. 4-6. They've lost the last 4 in a row, most recently losing to Minnesota. 6-13 straight up at home. 7-11 against the spread at home. Tristan Thompson out with an illness. They've gone over in 5 of the last 7. And the Pistons are road favorites, Triple B. 2.5 points, total at 215. How do you see this one?
Well, I mean, it's weird that people would even bet on this game, but people will, so I'm going to try to help them out. You got the Pistons with 13 wins. They're bad. But then you go from bad to worse. The Cavs only have 10 wins. So it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Cavs are on a 4-game losing streak. Their best player is out. They have 10 wins. Only the Knicks are playing worse. I mean, the Pistons should be a road favorite. So I guess I'm going to go with the Pistons by default only, though.
Well, combined, these teams have less wins than the Raptors.
Literally. And then it's not even that. The injuries. Not only is Tristan Thompson out for Cleveland, Blake Griffin is out for the Pistons.
But he's out for a while. That's why I didn't mention it. I mean, he's out indefinitely.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So you're not actually picking who's going to win. You're picking who's going to lose, who's worse in this one. And I think the Cavs are just worse than the Pistons. So I would take them by the 3 points on the road.
All right. You got it. All right. Next up, let's talk about reasonably crappy teams. Let's move right along, shall we? Timberwolves at Grizzlies. Here we go. The Wolves, 14-21, 15-18-2 against the spread. 4-6 in the last 10. They won the last 2, however, so there's a glimmer of hope for them, including that win against the Cavs that we just mentioned, but everyone beats them. They're 9-10 straight up, 11-7-1 against the spread away from home. Karl Anthony Towns, Jake Layman, they're out, under in 8 of the last 10 for the Wolves. And the Grizzlies, 15-22, 18-1 against the spread. 5-5 in the last 10, also won the last 2 in a row. I don't know what we're going to do with this one, Triple B. These two teams are hot. Okay, 7-12 straight up, 9-10 against the spread at home. Over in 4 of the last 5. Grizzles, home favorites at 3 points. And I know you kind of like the other side of this one.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know. I might have changed my mind now. Like, I don't want to be wishy-washy.
It's that Liberian Independence Day, right? It makes you, Pioneers Day, it makes you change your mind when you have some of that fine Liberian ale.
A little bit of that. No, seriously, all seriousness aside, it's the exact same scenario as the last game. You're going from bad to worse. Minnesota has 14 wins. They're really bad. You know what I mean? But the Grizzlies have 15, so they're a little bit better than that. And in this one, I think it's more of a familiarity thing. Both of these teams are coming off 2 wins, but Memphis is coming off 2 upsets. They weren't supposed to win, and the Minnesota team, they were supposed to win their games. And they
Wait. If you got 12 wins on the season, you're supposed to win 2 games? I mean, who are they playing? The under 12s?
The Cavs and the Knicks, I guess, but they were favored in those games, so they won them. Meanwhile, Memphis were underdogs in both games, and they came through as the dogs. They're at home, and they have owned the Timberwolves in this series. They won 7 of 10 against the Timberwolves straight up, so they got the home field advantage. They're coming off 2 upset wins. They're at home, and Karl Anthony Towns is the star player for Minnesota. I think I'm going to go with the home team in this one.
Yeah, he's not going to be going to Karl Anthony Towns because he's
not going, and that's their biggest star. So I think I'll go with the home team in that one.
All right, I'm going to go with the home team. Go with the Grizzles, -3. Do we have a total on that one?
I didn't have the total on that one, but I wouldn't look at that total with the star out. You don't know if they're going to be able to score more or if they're not even going to be able to put up a lot of buckets with their star player.
Right. I doubt they could score in a brothel without those guys. Okay, Blazers at Raptors. Blazers 15-22, 14-21-2 against the spread. Another team that's, shall we say, not so good. 4-6 the last 10. Lost to the Heat, 111-122 last outing. CJ McCollum's out with an illness. They're 7-13 straight up, 8-12. That's both away from home. And the Raptors, now finally we get a team with a record, shall we? 24-12, 21-15 against the spread. They cooled off a bit though, 6-4 in the last 10. They did beat the Nets 121-102 last time out. 14-5 straight up, 12-7 against the spread when at home. Fred VanVleet is out with a hamstring injury. Total under in 4 of the last 5. I don't have a total on this one. I'm pretty sure you do. But we've got the Raptors as a very marginal 1-point favorite. It's almost a pick 'em here against the Trailblazers. Am I reading this wrong? Okay, I think we lost Tony Brown. Is that right, Andrew? We did lose Tony. Okay, well, that's what we have. We have Toronto -1, another team that's just not very good. And finally, we're going to move along to the Knicks at the Lakers. The Knicks 10-26, 19-17 against the spread. They're 4-6 in the last 10, including a 2-game losing streak, falling 132-135 to the Clippers. They're 5-14 straight up, 11-8 against the spread away. Elfrid Payton's out. They've gone over in 5 of the last 6 against the Lakers. And the Lakers 29-7, 8-17-1 against the spread. They've won 5 in a row after that 4-game losing streak that I think surprised a lot of people. I mean, the Lakers are one of these teams that really impress you with their play. Obviously, they're loaded with superstars. But sometimes they just make really heavy work of it. And sometimes it seems like their own worst enemy. However, they did beat the Pistons 106-99. Look, a little touch and go there for a time. They're 14-4 straight up, 9-8-1 against the spread at home. Avery Bradley's out with a leg injury, but they've gone under in 7 of the last 10. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. They, however, are big home favorites here at -14 with a total of 220. I'm going to see, do we have anyone on? Why don't we bring Tony T in for this Knicks at Lakers and see what his take is on this. The Lakers are 14-point favorites. The total 220. We're going to talk to Tony after the break anyway with college basketball. Let's just give him 25 seconds on this game. Tony T, Knicks Lakers. You like this 220 and the Lakers -14?
Yeah, I think I would definitely look to the under in this game. The Lakers play defense at home, holding opponents just over 42% from the field. They went under in that Detroit game, and the Knicks are coming off a high-scoring game against the Clippers, but they've had a little bit of an under trend themselves. But I just think the Lakers' defense here is really going to be the key here for LA to keep this game under. I think the Knicks will have trouble even getting to 100 points against the Lakers. When you have guys like Anthony Davis, LeBron James against this Knicks roster, I think it's just going to be low scoring in this one.
LeBron James. I heard he's quite good. Yes.
Oh yeah, he is quite good. And of course, the Lakers, remember they went through a losing streak on the road here. They had just lost 4 straight, and I think they're trying to get their act together.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because I mentioned that in the preamble. I don't know if you heard or not, but I did say they've won. They're back to winning 5 in a row, but they had that kind of awkward 4-game losing streak. I mean, what do you put that down to, Tony?
Oh, it was a defensive end, and also the travel too. You have to look at their schedule, and They were on the road. There was a stretch there in December where they played 8 of their 9 games on the road. And this is what you got to be careful of in the NBA. You got to look at some of these schedules, because they had played 3 on the road, come back for 1 home game, then go on the road again for 5 road games. That home game is like a road trip, because you unpack, then you got to pack again and leave. Yeah. That is one of the worst. We saw that happen to OKC last year. They got a lot of those 1-game homestands, and I think that's why they petered out at the end of the season last year. We talked about that in the podcast at length last season when we saw OKC's schedule at the end. Those 1-game homestands between long road trips, those are terrible for NBA teams.
Finally, I just want to go back to this Blazers at Raptors game very quickly. We've literally just got a few seconds, because we dropped off with Triple B before he got to answer my question about what the Raptors are. Very narrow favorites at home. I got 1-point home favorites. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I don't personally see a line on there, so there may be some a book out there. Usually some of the U.S. sports books in New Jersey, sometimes they come up with the opening lines now in the NBA, and you're looking at Toronto here, and that Van Fleet injury is an important one, because remember they're without Siakam. Pascal Siakam's out. They're without Marc Gasol. They're dealing with cluster injuries. Right. But, I'm no fan of Portland. Just come off an 11-point loss against Miami. And Portland's a team that really has no depth. They have injuries of their own. They just lost Rodney Hood's out. Zach Collins is out. Josef Nurkic is out. Yep.
We got to go. So we'll do NBA another time. But when we come back, Tony and I will talk college basketball. Welcome back to the show, Picks and Parlays, on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, where we are each and every weekday from 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, also streaming live throughout the day on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I want to thank Tony Brown for the last segment, and Tony Tellez, my guest this segment, Comandante El Tigre, Tony Tellez. Welcome. Let's talk some college basketball, and thank you for pinch hitting right at the end of the last segment when we lost Tony Brown. An interesting discussion we were having about the Raptors and their Van Fleet's injury being huge. However, let's get to some college basketball, Tony, because that's what we're really here to talk about. We've curated 4 games. Now, I think you only gave me 3, and I think that's because Kentucky-Georgia, the SEC matchup, we didn't have a line on at the time. Do we have one yet or not?
Yeah, we do have a one from the power rating line, which I have a pick on for you.
Okay. All right, so let's do that. Let's start with the SEC, shall we? Kentucky-Georgia. The Wildcats 10-3, 5-7-1 against the spread. They're 8-2 in the last 10. They're only 1-0 in conference. That means they played a big 1 game so far. That was a 71-59 win over Mizzou. They've yet to play away, but they're neutral sites. They are 1-2. Ashton Hagans, Johnny Juzang, and Ben Jordan all out. They're 10-0 straight up in the last 10 versus Georgia. That's a hell of a stat. I'll tell you that right now. And the Bulldogs 10-3, 7-6 against the spread. Won the last 4. They're 7-3 straight up. Their first conference game. Jordan Harris suspended. They've gone under in 4 of the last 5, and I don't have any line on this one. So fill me in and educate me, Comandante El Tigre Tellez.
Yeah, we're looking at this one, power rating here at Kentucky, -2 on the road. Total should be in the mid-140s. But, the Wildcats, I'll take the home underdog here with the points with Georgia. The Wildcats are playing their first true road game of the season, and it's on the road against an improved Georgia team in conference. I don't like this when teams haven't played true road games. Yeah, they go on neutral courts and whatnot, but it's a little different when you're in a true road atmosphere. And Kentucky, as you remember, they kind of struggle in SEC road games because usually there's a lot of freshmen. They're not very experienced. Wildcats, are, as we know, a poor three-point shooting team, and they've dropped games on neutral courts to both Ohio State and Utah. And, of course, early in the season, that was one of what made the national headlines, so they lost at home to Evansville.
Right.
And as you mentioned, they're dealing with key injuries like Ashton Hagans. He sees the most action of any player on the court. But I want to make note here about the Wildcats. They only make 40% of their shots while giving up 47% of their shots away from home. So they don't shoot the ball well. Bulldogs, 8-0 at home, hit nearly 50%, 39% from the three-point line. I'm going to go ahead and take the 2 points here with Georgia.
All right, very nice. 2 points with Georgia it is. Okay. Now, we've got 3 big games to get to. We've got a Big 10, a Big 12, and a Big East. Why not big it up, shall we? Let's start with the Big 10, Ohio State, Maryland. The Buckeyes 11-3, 10-4 against the spread. Now, almost perfect 10-1 start. Went just a little bit pear-shaped once conference play began. They're now 11-3 with conference losses to Wisconsin and Minnesota. 1-1 straight up against the spread away from home. They're 1-6 straight up in the last 7 though versus Maryland and the Terrapins. 12-2, couple of good records here by the way. 6-8 against the spread. 12-2 with one of those losses coming in conference to Penn State. They're 9-0 straight up, 5-4 against the spread at home. Total is under in 5 of the last 7, and we've got 134.5 points here. And the Terrapins, 2-point home favorites. They're thinking this is going to be a close game, evenly matched teams.
Yeah, but I will actually favor the home team, Maryland -2. Terrapins did win both meetings last season with the Buckeyes home and away. They're 9-0 at home. They play very good defense at home, allowing 36% shooting, and they're good defending near the bucket. They had a home conference win against Indiana on Saturday, winning 75-59. But Ohio State, they've lost 2 straight, all at home. They lost to West Virginia. And you would think a program like Ohio State would bounce back with a home win after a home loss. They didn't. They lost to Wisconsin. Terrible shooting in both games. And that kind of concerns me because, remember, they went on the road in the Big Ten Conference and lost 84-71 at Minnesota. And away from home, Ohio State only 41% shooting. And the Terrapins shoot the ball better and rebound better at home. I'll take Maryland here at the short price, -2.
I'll take the Maryland -2. Okay. You're being predictable today, Tony. Big 12. Let's go to Baylor, Texas Tech. Baylor Bears 11-1, 7-5 against the spread. Won the last 10 in a row, most recently kicking off Big 12 conference play with a big win over Texas. I say big, it was 14 points. This, though, the first true away game for Baylor at this point. They're 6-4 head-to-head with Texas Tech in the last 10. 6-4, that is. They've gone under in 4 of the last 6. And the Red Raiders, 10-3. Sounds like a communist revolutionary guerrilla group, doesn't it? The Red Raiders. 10-3, 6-7 against the spread. They're 7-3 in the last 10. They've been on a 5-game winning streak, most recently an 85-80 win in conference play at Oklahoma State, or to Oklahoma State. Was that that was at home, wasn't it? Yeah, it was at home.
Oklahoma State, yeah.
Yeah, they're 8-0 straight up, 4-4 against the spread when at home. They're 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 at home to Baylor, and they are home favorites with 2 points at 129.5. Not a lot of scoring in this one, right, Tony?
Yeah, well, because Texas Tech is a really good defensive team. I think one of the hardest things, you talk to handicappers and they'll tell you that one of the hardest things to do is to win a road game in college basketball and conference play, and it's really tough to win on the road. That's why I'm going to lean here. I'm going to take Texas Tech here at minus the 2 points. You know, the Red Raiders returned home from that for their holiday tournaments, and they really got their form right to start the conference play. They opened up Big 12 play, pounded Oklahoma State. They're 8-0 on the home court shooting, 47%, holding teams to 37% shooting. You know, when you go on these holiday tournaments, there's a lot of distractions for not only the players, but the coaches, because usually there's high school tournaments going on. You're out there on the recruiting trail looking at these high school players. So a lot of times there's not a lot of focus from not only the players, but the coaches when it comes down to these holiday tournaments. When you get into conference play, it's all hands on deck. Everyone's focused here on these plays. And I think this is where the cream rises to the top in a program like Texas Tech that has really good coaching. And one thing to note, the Red Raiders have pounded Baylor at home the past 2 seasons, winning by 25 last year, 24 2 seasons ago. They make their free throws, defend around the bucket. You know, Baylor's lone loss came to Washington on a neutral court, and this will be the Bears' first true road game against a power conference. So again, it's going to be a difficult atmosphere for Baylor. We've seen them crumble the last 2 seasons in this spot. I'm going to go ahead and take Texas Tech laying the 2.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes, and we still have one more game, but it actually does beg a question that I've been meaning to ask you, Tony, because you know, how important is your game selection, your non-conference game selections, the tournaments you're invited to, the games, the non-conference games? You obviously want to have a mix of good opposition, but how much of this is just protecting your record?
Well, you know, because the way the formulas are now for the big dance, you want to play good competition on the road. And I think what happens is that's why you see so many of these neutral court tournaments, because, you know, you're not at home. So you get a little bit more brownie points when these committees get together at the end of the season, pick out the teams for the tournament. So I think what happens here is you want to face top competition. And of course, again, you're looking for, these coaches are looking to recruit. And of course, when you go on the road, again, you want to make sure that there are high school tournaments around you so you can actually go out there and try and pluck some of your recruits into the program. But more importantly, if you're facing good competition, it all gives you that test for the conference play. You know, if you notice that for these big power conferences, you know, if you just have a 500 record, a lot of times that gets you into the big dance. So that's why it's so important to get tested early in the season, because I think it was Sean Higgs the other day talked about St. John's. Oh, they were like 10-0 in non-conference play, and then they only won 2 games in conference because they didn't get tested. So you want to have a mix of both, I would say.
And that's for the recruiting. You can just leave that up to cocaine and hookers. Isn't that how they do it?
Well, you know, the problem is they're starting to wire these people. So it's getting harder and harder to do that.
No, I'm just kidding. Little recruiting humor for you there. All right. Next up, our last game, the Big East, Villanova at Creighton. The Wildcats 10-3, 5-7-1 against the spread. They're 8-2 in the last 10, though. Most recently, suffering that loss in conference play, 60-71. Here we go again, Tony, to Marquette. They're 1-2 straight up, 0-3 against the spread away from home. So, you know, this is not a big away team at this point. Guard Brian Antoine's out with a shoulder injury, totals under in 5 of the last 6. And the Blue Jays, 12-3, 7-6-1 against the spread, 8-2 in the last 10, coming off an in-conference loss to Butler, which was 57-71. They're 10-0 straight up, 5-3-1 against the spread at home. Davian Mintz, Jacob Epperson out indefinitely, over in 5 of the last 6 versus Villanova. Creighton, Blue Jays, 2.5-point home favorites. And Tony, I actually didn't get a total on this.
Yeah, I don't have the total available here, but I will look for the favorite here at home. Blue Jays, Creighton here, laying 2.5. a good home record, 11-1. You know, Villanova is a great program. We know they had some really success in the tournaments, NCAA tournament the past few seasons, but I don't think they're as good as they were back then. So I think you're getting a little bit of value here with Creighton. And of course, Creighton's only loss at home came to a really good San Diego State team, which I'll say is probably the best team well, at least the rankings are telling you they're the best team in California. But at home, the Blue Jays, they have wins by 17 in the conference in Marquette. They picked up wins at home in the non-conference at Oklahoma by 10, and they beat a very good Texas Tech by 7. And of course, they can shoot the ball 48% at home, 38% from 3, and they defend, which I like. And of course, we're looking here at Villanova. Against Big East Conference opponents, they're only making 37% of their shots. And of course, against Power Conference teams, they lost on the road big to Ohio State and to Marquette. And the other defeat came to Baylor by 9 in neutral court. And it's just they're not shooting the ball very well. And Villanova's failed to cover 9 of 10 on the road. I'm going to go ahead and take Creighton here with laying the 2.5.
Although I agree with you, UCLA definitely the best team in California. I agree, Tony. Well said. All right. Look, we still have a few minutes, so I want to ask you a question. Let's get off college basketball for a minute. By the way, thank you for those great picks. We will recap them after the show if our viewers and listeners missed any of it. Very quickly, Tua announced today that he's going to go for the NFL draft. You know, I look at this and I think this is a mistake, at least from my end, because, you know, coming off that injury this season that basically saw him play just almost none of it, you know, don't you think he should go back to his final year, prove he's still got it? The university will protect him. They have another quarterback they want to rotate through. Do you think his value's diminished because of the injury? People are going to have question marks.
Well, you know, this is the NFL, and I think at some point it may, but, you know, what came to my mind here is Detroit Lions. You know, you got Matthew Stafford. They may be, you know, Detroit may be looking for a replacement for Stafford, and I think Detroit Lions might be a good fit. But when you bring him in, you could probably sit Tua for a year or 2 seasons. Look what happened to Aaron Rodgers. He was behind Brett Favre for a couple seasons.
Great point.
I think if Tua goes to Detroit, it'll be a great situation because you at least can get 1 or 2 seasons out of Stafford, and then Tua can develop. And what's the more important thing about these college quarterbacks is you got to learn the league. You got to know you got to sit through some game plans, go through some practices. Stand on the sideline, observe what's going on out there, learn the play, learn how everything goes on in the game. It's very tough for these rookie quarterbacks to really figure out this entire complex system that is quarterbacking in the NFL. I think if he could sit for 2 seasons in Detroit, he can really have a productive NFL season.
Yeah, and of course the size differential. I mean, and there is one between college, even a big college program like Alabama, where he's used to having, you know, slabs of concrete around him. They pale in comparison to what he's going to find in the NFL. So there's going to be that adjustment. Tony T, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great picks. By the way, right now, Tony's picks are at picksandparlays.net, and we have a special for you. You can get an annual pass. That's right. Choose a capper. Tony T, Joe Duffy, Triple B, Craig Trapp, who else? Sean Higgs, Chip Chirimbus, whoever you want. $9.99, all their picks the entire year. But if you want to choose 2 of them, because you know they get lonely by themselves, it's $14.99 for the entire year for their expert picks. Bet with the best sporting intelligence you can get. You're going to get it at Picks and Parlays. All right, if you missed any of the picks, I'll recap right after the break. Welcome back, Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Nick Geber. I hope you enjoyed the show. We've had a really big show today. Of course, we talked everything from NFL, college basketball, NBA, giving you a bit of everything today. And of course, all the picks on this show are absolutely scot-free. And they're great picks as well. Let's recap. We started with AFC Playoffs. Joe Duffy subbing in for Sean Duffy. His picks as follows. Titans at Ravens. Take the under 48, and Texans at Chiefs. Take the over 9.5 in the first quarter. Great bet there. I love that one. Next up, Triple B, we were talking some NBA. Pistons at Cavs. Take the Pistons -3. Knicks at Lakers. Take the Lakers -13.5. Timberwolves at Grizzlies. Take the Timberwolves +3. And Blazers at Raptors. Take the Raptors -1. And finally, Tony T's college basketball picks. Baylor, Texas Tech, take Texas Tech -3. Villanova, Creighton, take the Creighton Blue Jays -3. And we had one other one, by the way. I'll get to that in a second. Kentucky at Georgia. Oh, there it is. Take Georgia +2. And the one we didn't get was Ohio State, Maryland. He said take Maryland -2. I'll throw that in for good measure. All right. Those were our picks. Hope you had a chance to write them down. But if you didn't, don't worry. This show will repeat. You can find replays of this show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, our podcast network, the Believe Podcast Network, is right there for you if you want to download the show and listen to it while you work out and all the rest of that good stuff. Sweat with the oldies. Get some free picks. All right, I'll be back with you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, and, of course, throughout the day at picksandparlays.net. Hope you will join us then. In the meantime, enjoy these free picks, and remember, bet, win, repeat.